The whole idea about the agri space is for us to understand the opportunities that are there and also come to the realization that young people like you are the people that we want to be interested in agriculture. Very soon, by the close of this decade, we are already 7 billion. The projection is that by the end of this decade, that means effectively by 2030, we're looking at a population of 10 billion people on Earth. These people are going to eat, they need food, they need water, especially food. And they are not going to eat apps, they are not going to eat clothes, they are not going to eat automobiles, they are going to eat food. So the growing need to get food across the world has reinforced the importance of agriculture. Are there people from natural sciences in this class? Are there? Okay, so let's roll the video, please.
The next alternative was the main alternative to crime, right? Agriculture can be more wealthy and much more wealthy than any crime can afford. No matter how much you make from ransom, agriculture can give you thrice of what you make from kidnapping ransom. No matter how much you make from banditry and cattle rustling, agriculture can give you times 10 of that. So we need to see these things. We need to show them the opportunities, right? We need to make an enterprise structure around agriculture to make them leave their ways of insecurity and get involved in agriculture. So that's the first step to address insecurity in the country. Public enlightenment on agriculture as business for young people nationwide. Once they start agriculture as business, they know that the farmlands that they are attacking is where they can generate enough wealth that will go around. They will start protecting it and they'll get involved. So let's enlighten our young people. Let's create sufficient sensitization and awareness and follow it up with enterprise structures. We need to incentivize agriculture, not pay lip service to it. Do you understand? Before you give a young person loan, make sure he has the capacity to sustain that loan so he doesn't come back to you again. So, of course, that's why we're here as young farmers to help government address these issues.
Everyone can be a farmer, irrespective of whether you have a farm or not. You can participate in farming. First and foremost, they need to have interest. It's not just all about front. They need to have the information and they need to have the reason why, how, where. Yes, they need to have the reason why, where, how am I doing it. The passion should be here. In this network, we have GEAR strategy. The GEAR strategy is to gather, equip, accelerate, and release. To get me where we gather the data, equip them with the necessary information, activate them, then we release them. And we give them the linkage where they can get the funds. But first and foremost, it's passion and having the necessary information for them to go into agribusiness.
Yes, I hope we've learned something from there. The first is this. We know of late, one of the thriving businesses in Nigeria that is attracting young people is banditry, kidnapping, because we have seen how very young people, very, very young, you wonder where this country is headed when you see them paraded as kidnappers and bandits just because they want to collect ransom. And we are saying that agriculture presents a viable alternative to all of that. The energy of young people like all of you should be into something that is productive to yourself and to society. And that is why you can see clearly someone who is a youth like you is calling upon everyone to take interest in agriculture. And the beauty about agriculture is that it accommodates the highly skilled, the medium skilled, and even the unskilled. So there is a space for everyone in the agribusiness because it is huge, it's wide, it can accommodate everybody because of its dimensions. The other learning point in in the video is also interest. First of all, you need to have the interest. And not just agriculture, anything at all that you want to do as a young person. The most important thing is to demonstrate that you have interest to do that. It is your interest that will lead to every other thing that becomes the foundational cornerstone for what you are going to build upon. If the interest is not there, then it's hard to communicate, it's hard to learn, it's hard for you to get anywhere. So, two learning points. We have seen clearly that agriculture is an alternative, and we have also seen clearly that all we need is that interest. And I think what we are trying to attempt to achieve this morning is to ignite your interest, to see where you have passion for, how that can be driven. Just to run statistics, I'm sure that when you check the Bureau for Statistics of Nigeria, the National Bureau for Statistics, you have more detailed statistics on data on agriculture. But just to give you a context, we have about 35 million hectares of land that is suitable for cultivation. Agriculture, Nigeria is a very blessed country, and agriculture is one of the most significant things that people do in rural areas, and the vast land is highly underutilized. Our contribution to GDP, you can see close to 30%. So agriculture is by far the singular greatest contributor to GDP because we are predominantly farmers. Then, of course, the general statistics, when you look at it, job creation, 70% is still agriculture because most of people you find in rural areas, one class, please, one class, one class, one class. Please, one class. You can see the statistics. Basically, as of today, crop production takes about 87%, livestock is about less than 10%, fish production is about 3%, and forestry. These are the major sectors that you find in agriculture, and that's the classifications. And of course, there is an attempt to show you the percentage of youths that are in agriculture. But again, when you look at it, we have a population of over 200 million people. Now, predominantly, we have a youthful population, but only a small percentage of youth engage in agriculture. The remaining, the average age of the Nigerian farmer is 65. So what do we have? We have primitive aging farmers that we have left the destiny of feeding the country into their hands. We are expecting these aging farmers to feed of play. So we need to understand the opportunities and the statistics that drives these opportunities. Next slide. Now, the general broad classifications in agriculture, as you will see, just like in the petroleum industry, I'm sure you have heard about upstream, midstream, and downstream in the petroleum sector. That is very common, and that's the one that most of us know about. Agriculture is also classified like that. You have the upstream, you have the midstream, you have the downstream. There are various activities in agriculture that are classified as upstream, midstream, and downstream. Now, upstream activities, you have inputs. That is where you have seed, you have fertilizer, you have chemicals, water. All these are the components of the inputs that you have in the upstream sector of agriculture. Then you come to land preparation, you have to come to crop care, and then you come to harvest. Now, when you combine all of that, that gives you the upstream segment in agriculture. That's what we call the upstream segment of agriculture. Now, the midstream, that is when After harvest, you now be thinking of warehousing and storage, standardization and quality control and processing. Because at the midstream level, you are not into primary production. The upstream is into what we call primary production. They are the ones responsible for producing either livestock or farm products. But the midstream, you can see a different set of activity has emerged. Then the downstream, you can see distribution, you can see transportation, you can see markets, you can see off-takers, and you can see consumers. Now, that gives you how wide is the space of agriculture. I'm sure maybe the mindset you had when you came into this lecture is that when they say agri-business opportunities, you are just thinking of just going back to your village and becoming a farmer. There is nothing wrong with that. That is primary production if you want to play in that space, but you can play in the other steps. Under livestock also, because we have two broad categories under agriculture. You have crop production, and then you have the animal production. So under livestock production, you have inputs also, you have animal husbandry and crop and care, and then you have the production itself, then processing, storage, standardization, and quality control. You can see distribution, transportation, marketing, and consumption is also repeating itself. So that gives you an idea that agribusiness is so wide and the classifications are so big that you cannot find, there are several things that you can pitch. For me, I'm doing agribusiness, but I don't do direct primary production. I don't plant anything. I provide mechanization. We deal with machinery that you use for farming. That's what we do. So we have a space that we play, and everybody can decide today that this is where I'm going to play. Next slide. Now, having listened to the classifications, I'm sure you will be able to also want to, I know by now you are settling in your mind that, okay, which area am I going to play? Let us look at agri-tech and see what is being done in that space. There's a young man who is doing something in the agri-tech space and that we feel you should know. And he's a fairly young person like you guys. So let's play the video, please.
And you may wonder why. Well, it is put together here in Jos by some young Nigerians led by a 24-year-old Jerry Farmer. One of the plateaus named for its people, justice, natural endowment and vegetation, suitable for the cultivation of a wide range of agricultural produce. Not much is told of its technical heart. However, one young man appears set to tell that story. At secondary school, I find it difficult to comprehend the theoretical aspects, but when we go to the lab, I find myself teaching others how to do the practical aspects of it. His passion for practical education then gave him a chance to study at Hertfordshire University, where he excelled in practicals but lagged behind in theory. I felt here it was a big leap for me, but just to be honest, I felt I needed more. His decision to return to Nigeria to play this mentor rather than stay put in the UK unsettled everyone around him.
I even cried, thinking, how can my son go to study abroad and then come back without finishing his studies?
An hour 90-minute drive from the city center is focused, where it all began for him, and where he settled upon his return from the UK.
So this workshop is where I spent most of my time. It has been very active. I spent most of my time, 3 hours in here. Yeah, you're welcome.
It brought people of like minds and passion together, which led to the birth of Benny Agros.
Benny, in my dialect, my local dialect, means knowledge. So I just wanted it to be
a platform where knowledgeable people bring their ideas together, make a living out of the ideas, and solve problems in the society.
Jerry changed the story by channeling his energy to building agro-machineries. 4 years down the line, the story is different. They now churn out various agro-equipment manually from this workshop at the backyard. In 2018, this venture won the Nigeria MSME Award. And with the right investment, many agro can turn the fortunes of non-local farmers around.
We have machines such as lead machine, rolling machines, bending machines, stand drill. With those machines, we'll be able to make over 75% of the tractor parts.
His dream of building cars for the country is still intact as the launch of this made in Nigeria car reaches an advanced stage.
There is nothing more further from the truth than to believe the nation can become a world player without paying attention to science and technology, human capital development, and of course, gifted ones like Jerry Mallow. The trajectory, therefore, would be to seek them out and, of course, help them hone their skills and own their space. That would be a great start to a new era. From Jos, Plateau State, North Central Nigeria, Crystal Labs, Channels Television News.
Is that a familiar story? Is his background as similar to majority of us? I'm asking. For some of you that want to japa, this one don't japa and he has japaed back, isn't it? He went abroad and came back. Now, there's something interesting about this young man. With all the barriers to progress, even the school system was too slow for him. Dropping out of school is not a good thing. But what we are saying is that you can combine good education with entrepreneurship. But this is an extreme example of somebody who was so hungry to get something started. I want you to look at your neighbor, face your neighbor, hold your ear like this, hold it like this, everybody. Look at your neighbor. Say, the boy is only 23 years old, though. See what he's doing, oh. Are you next? All right. Please, let us take that seriously. Don't say I didn't tell you. He's a young man like you who don't, you can hear what the mother was saying. And it's very true. You have a son that has traveled abroad and then only for him to get back. As a mother, you would talk like the way she was talking, to say, what will be my own? You would even say, your village people are after this boy. They have brought him back. But another thing I want you to learn is the power of focus. He's a focused young man, and there is no barrier to progress that as a young man that you cannot overcome. Is that clear? Now, the value chain of agriculture is still similar to the classification that we've learned. When you hear that word, agricultural value chain, what that typically means is the various segments or flow of activities or events that constitute agriculture. And each segment, you can pitch there and do your own activity. And that's why we are calling it value chain, because at each segment, you are creating value. Now in the upstream, that's why you have research and innovation. Some people have deployed a lot of effort in research and innovation. For example, for some of you that read science, I don't know whether you have heard about the Haber-Bosch process. That is the process that led to how ammonia is created. Now that harbor wash process, today, it is listed as one of the 100 most important global inventions in the world. It was invented by German scientists, and the reason is this: the food that we have today, the modern fertilizer, which support the population of the world, will not be possible without the harbor wash process. So you can see how innovation and research drives agriculture. So everybody has a space to contribute, then inputs and then mechanization. Then you come to also primary production, harvest, primary processing, primary transport, primary storage. Then you come to value-added processing, logistics, transport, warehousing. Then you come to completely the downstream sector. That's where you have the retail. The people that buy, that sell, the market, they play in the retail segment of agriculture. So if you tie this with the one we have shared initially, it gives you a complete sense of what the classifications and the quality of agriculture. And there are various places that you can pitch. Next slide. Now, I know the elephant in the house has always been, for anybody that wants to start business, the question has always been, I don't have the money. Have you ever heard somebody saying that if I have the capital today, I'll start my own business? Have you heard that before? Is that familiar? Is that our situation? Okay, so hold your ear again and look at the other person. Everybody, hold your ear. Look at the other person. I say everybody. You. Everyone. Look at the other person. Say it is not capital that you need, but capital ideas. So don't wait for capital. Think of a big idea. So you need to understand that, yes, we need money, we need money, we need money. In the first video, you have heard about interest, isn't it? That you have to even be interested. But it is from that interest that now you begin to generate the ideas. And once the idea comes and you own it, then everything becomes easy. So in the space of financing in agriculture, there are three things I want you to understand. Funding, which is the money itself, guarantee, and insurance. These three things play in agri space, and they are very, very important that you understand them. The funding is where the money is going to come, the person that will give you the money. It will be the bank. Now, that is why in this slide, we have government funding. We have a number of schemes predominantly run by central bank. Some state governments are also doing something in that space that fund agriculture. So what you need to do is to read them up. Go to the website of central bank, go to development finance section, and then you see all the agri space, agri projects that they are funding. Within the last 8 years, central bank has pumped trillions into agriculture. And I'm sure you have heard about the various schemes that were out there. So you have from the anchor borrower to the agricultural credit guarantee scheme, to the agri small and medium enterprise scheme, to commercial agricultural credit scheme, to agri credit support scheme. These are all schemes being driven by the federal government, predominantly through the Central Bank of Nigeria. Now, then you look at also in funding, you have to look at development partners. All the development partners, this list is just a short list. It's just to guide you. You can do further research. There are so many, but this is just to guide you that they are segmented in that way to help you also understand the role that everybody plays. So for development partners, you can see them: FAO, Food and Agriculture Organization, Alliance for Green Revolution in Africa, IFAD, Afri-Exim Bank, AFDB. So these are all institutions that are into development that are supporting agribusiness at various levels. So I would want you to read more about them, read more about people that are playing in that space. For example, the Alliance for a Green Revolution in Africa, AGRA is where, if you know Adesina, the president of the African Development Bank, he was in AGRA, that was his last position in Kenya, before he was appointed as minister, and from minister, he now became the president of ADB. Now, AGRA is an organization that is made of global experts in agriculture, especially focusing on Africa. So what they do is that it's a think tank of knowledge, and development partners come to them with funding, like Microsoft, like the Apple Group that manufacture tractor, or the John Deere Group. All the major players, the global players in the world that want to play in the space of agriculture, they come to AGRA with funding to say, this is what we want to do, take the money, you are the expert, deploy the money. So they run various things. So you need to know about them and read it all. Now, the other group that you can source money is also, we call them deposit money banks, and then the capital market. So you have the banks, you have the microfinance bank, that's one segment. You have the venture capital, you have the private equity, you have crowdfunding. Now, these are all opportunities for funding. And then, of course, you have the bond issuance, you have commercial papers, you have the note issuance. For example, my company, when we couldn't get funding from the bank, we ended up doing the last one, which is the note issuance. That's how we raised the money, through note issuance. So you need to understand the various opportunities of raising finance. Is you don't need to box yourself into just one bucket. There are many buckets of financing that you need to explore and understand. Then we come to the other part, which is insurance. These are various insurance channels. The Nigerian Insurance Agricultural Corporation, NAEC, the Nigerian RE, the Africa RE, and the several domestic insurance and international insurance companies that we have. What do you need insurance for? In agriculture, agriculture is a high-risk business in itself. For example, if you are a farmer, for no fault of yours, it can be too much water. There could be drought. There could be outbreak of disease, and that can undermine whatever you have done. And that is why you need the insurance company to underwrite your risks. If you are also into animal production, there could be disease outbreak, there could be anything that will make you lose. And that's why insurance is very important. Then the other component is strategic alliance. Listen to me very well on this one, because you need it. Majority of people that don't have financing, young people that are rising up like you don't have money. Somebody is paying your bills. You are here now on the pockets of your parents and your uncles. Now, why are you going to get the money, even if you have the capital idea? But the idea, if it is capital, it will also produce the money. Because if it is a capital idea, it will also tell you the strategic alliances that you need to build to make up the shortage in funding that you have, or the inadequacy to raise finance that you apparently have. Because the first thing the bank will tell you is that you don't have experience. You have not done this before. You don't have cash flow to demonstrate that you can repay us. So all those things is a pushback for all of us. As an entrepreneur outside there, that's the frustration we go through, raising capital. So one of the ways to do that, first, you need to understand what is the requirement of the financial institution? What are they looking for? They are looking for experience. Okay, look for somebody or a structure that you can align with to be part of your experience. Am I communicating? Yes, sir. So that is a stepping stone because you don't have that, but you have somebody now that you can hide under through partnership, through some people may even be, okay, we want to support you. We are part of this. So strategic alliance is identifying partners that destiny help us. People that are interested in saying that they want to see you succeed, and whatever you need, you can bounce it on us. So we need to do that. And strategic alliance can come in form of partnership, it can come in form of PPP, it can come in form of social investment. You can rely on cooperatives, unions. These are groups that sometimes, as an individual, if they don't take it seriously, you can hide under a cooperative, farmers union, farmers association to get it done. And then commodity cooperatives also and the commodity unions. That is a convenient group because they have the convening power and the numbers to drag attention. So you can easily belong to one and hatch your own idea and leverage the structure to get somewhere. Then last but not the least is the credit guarantee. In agriculture, the person that will give you money would want to see the first thing that a banker is worried about is that if I part with this money, how is this money going to come back? How is this money going to come back? And if the bank is not convinced and they cannot see it clearly that this money, when they give you, this money is going to come back, then they walk away. And that's why the guarantee agencies, they work like insurance. What they do also is that they look at your project. NISAL is one of the guarantee agencies. That's what they do in NISAL. They look at your project, they de-risk the project. They make sure that all the risk elements are addressed in terms of everything that you need to do to succeed. And then they will say, okay, we are ready to take up these risks. Go ahead and lend them the money. So you have there, NISAL is Nigeria incentive-based risk sharing system for agricultural lending. They are there. There is the Agri Credit Guarantee Fund. It's also for guarantee. There is the impact credit. The impact credit is not just for agriculture, but anything to do with infrastructure and agriculture and the rest, they do that. Then there is also infra credit. This one is when you want to go into infrastructure. That's why it is even called infra credit. They guarantee if you are interested in infrastructure. And then last but not the least, there is an export credit guarantee scheme for those that are interested in export. So understand that when you talk about financing, the limitation we have as young people is that we don't even know the linkages of what makes the whole story. And it has to be linked all together. Otherwise, it would not make sense. Is that very clear? So you have to tick the box of the funder, you have to tick the box of the guarantee person, and then you have to tick the box of the insurance. And within that mix, you need to look for areas of advantage, and that area of advantage, one of it is building strategic alliance to make sure that the bank will say, after looking at everything, they will say, we're good to go. Next slide. Now, one of the challenges we have with young people, with all these things that you have listed, there is a problem. And that problem is that agriculture is not attractive to young people. When they say agriculture, what comes to mind is old-looking, poor, haggard farmer. And it's a turn off for young people. You are tech guys, everything is fast. You are the internet generation. You are probably the luckiest group of human beings on earth because you are born into the generation that everything is touch button. So agriculture is not sexy, and it has driven young people away from that. Play the video, please.
Okay, so we're going to close it at this point, but if you feel you have a very burning issue, just one burning issue.
Yeah, this is a copy by, then you have the camera, this is done by FOL. If you show this to a young person, a young woman like me, and say go into agriculture, they're going to go into it. Definitely not. I told the world back the same thing. If you want to make agriculture attractive, you want to make it sexy, start by publishing it. Get a young person who's attractive, put them on this picture. I said this in Harare last year to say, can we try to make agriculture sexy? This organization, the UN, the FOL, whoever is involved in the agriculture sector, they advertising, whoever you are, make agriculture sexy. This is the beginning point of making it attractive for the young people. If you, the organizers, the frontiers, the people who are supposed to lead us are putting such pictures, what are you sending to a person, a young person from the village, to pick this picture and like, oh, this is what we need. But if they see a young person very attractive like me, and you put me here, even the young men in the village, they'll be like, wow, I want to be like her. I mean, where am I going to find this woman? Let me join agriculture. I mean, this is practical. That's what we need to be talking about. So please, my request is that next time we're going to have such a conference, whatever is coming up, you can look for me on Facebook, Tamara Happy Face Kaunda. Put my picture there and say she's a farmer. And a medical doctor, yeah. Well, most people, they like to see me, oh, don't look at that, she's farming, she's a doctor. No, I want to be called a farmer. Right. Because the problem we have in Africa is hunger. We don't need drugs. I work in a hospital and I can guarantee you 80% of the diseases, why we're losing young people is because of poverty. So why then can't we give them the nutrition they need instead of the drugs? That's the switching from medicine to agriculture. So that's the work we should be looking at. Another thing, she's from Singapore, I'm from Zambia. The borrowing rate in Zambia is about 35% to 40%. You can say, yes, I don't have, I don't want to go to the bank or whatever. No, I've tried going there, but why should I create to make such a suicidal decision to go and borrow at a 40% rate? It's impossible. I want to go to the government to borrow. They say, no, you need to work for the government for 2 years. But I need the project running. I've got people following me. They need to come to the farm and see what I'm doing. So funding, we're not looking for charity. Like I was quite offended by the doctor who said, no, farming is not a charity. Yes, we're not looking for charity. But if you can give me $10,000 at a rate of maybe 5%, 2%, like the Chinese come, they come with the lower percentage and they come and invest here and they beat us. I cannot compete with her even if she came to Zambia because she borrowed from Singapore at a lower rate. But look at me in Zambia, 40%, that's suicide. Right. So we can talk and talk and talk, but let's create an enabling environment for the African youth. Because we can't have so much vast land, yet we're languishing in poverty. Netherlands cannot export to Africa if they don't feed their own people. Yes, I'm happy the young people are exporting, but why are we leaving our people? Why are they dying? African grapes are the richest because we've lost so many young people due to poverty and hunger. So we need to really critically look at agriculture as the oxygen for economic growth in Africa. It should not be a backbone. I can break my backbone today and I can live on. But if I don't have oxygen, I can't live on. So agriculture should be the oxygen of the economy in Africa. Thank you.
What a way to actually powerfully finish this conversation. One, make agriculture sexy in order to attract young people into it. And number two, start seeing agriculture as the oxygen of our economies and not just the backbone of our economies. From our teams right here, we're going to say thank you for watching this CNBC Africa special. I'm Eugene and Nangwe.
something there, hold your ears there and look at your neighbor. Everybody, look at your neighbor. Everybody, everyone. Look at your neighbor. Say after me. Even medical doctors are now farmers. And agriculture is what? Is the oxygen of every economy. Is that clear? It doesn't matter. What I want you to learn from this video is that it doesn't matter your background. You are aspiring to become professional accountants, business managers, any form of endeavor that you want to do. Agriculture is the melting point. You can do that. You can see that she's a medical doctor, but it does not stop her from engaging in agriculture. So that is the call this morning. Understand that the opportunities are very clear. They are huge. There are young people like you who have studied, gone to the university like you also, that are doing something in the agri space. And that's the future for the continent. We need food to feed the continent first. You can see that the crisis in Ukraine has made the price of wheat to go up. That's why the price of bread has doubled. We have a challenge across Africa, a continent that cannot feed itself with all the opportunities that we have. In 2019, the Netherlands, which is not up to Kwara State. Is there anybody from Kwara here? The whole of the Netherlands is not up to Kwara. And their total export in agriculture, it's just a component of their GDP, was about $90 billion. And then Nigeria, we pride ourselves, so we are oil producing country, we are this, we are that. In that same year, we only made about $28 billion in oil. A tiny country, the Netherlands, which is not up to Kwara. Ukraine, as far away Ukraine, there's a problem there and there's hunger in Africa. This generation should not allow that to happen. Because if our generation and the generations after us have failed to produce food for this country, you should. Because if you don't have food, you are a beggar. Literally, you are a beggar. Food is the most important thing to have, and we can see the war in Ukraine has affected the continent all over. Price of food has gone up because where the food is coming from is no longer coming. So we'll rush through because we'll soon end the presentation. Business opportunities under farm technology, you can see it. For some of you, because we know you want, you are tech savvy. So there is a space for you. You can do farm inventory management, sales of fertilizer, chemical, pesticides, seeds, and of course, we have heard about a lot of agri-startups that are driven by tech. So these are all opportunities that you have under that to engage. Next slide. Next slide. You can see business opportunities under sales and distribution, inventory management, product marketing, sale of farm product, transportation business, online agri-agency, and sales of farm implements. These are all things that you can engage in as a young person who wants to engage in agriculture. Next slide. Agro processing, from bakery to flour milling to fish hatchery to juice production to micro irrigation system, pesticide production, oil palm, honey. The list is endless. You can just take one area that interests you, that you are endowed, that the economic advantage around you is clear, that there is an opportunity for strategic alliance. You just take one area. Maybe your auntie is doing it, that's the starting point. Your uncle is doing it, that's the starting point. You leverage. And that's why I said strategic alliance is very important. Next slide. Now, sometimes you get worried when you talk to young people because they always want to, you need to relate the example to themselves. And it's very true because young people like you would want to see this thing that they are saying is not just saying. I am not a motivation speaker because I don't know that. I'm a practical businessman and I'm sharing practical experiences. This is not a motivation talk, oh, you can go and touch the star. That's not, this conversation is not about that. It's about practically coming up with an example that helps you understand that there are young people like you that are in that space. Ali Usman, who is from Kano here? People from Pura? Anybody from Kano? Kanawa? Nobody from Kano? Everybody from Kano, stand up, please. Kano, up. Okay, when you are, if you have been to Kano, that's fine. If you've been to Kano, Kura is, I think is after leaving the boundaries of Kaduna, if it is not the first, it's the second local government. You see the farm activities in Kura is almost 24/7, 365 days. Every time you go there, there is an activity. So this guy is from Kura. So he's very, very practical. You can check him out. He is there. And again, Onyeka Okuma, she was the one that came with the idea of the farm crowding. They have done it. They've done successfully well. It's much more of an investment, but farming company where they combine technology, investment, and farming. They've done well. So you can, the link is there. You can watch the videos of the two gentlemen. Next slide. Next slide. Now, Julius, this is a South African guy, and this is also another Kenyan example. So what does this tell you? And in each of them, there is the link there. You go and watch it after this presentation. The whole idea is people are doing it and they are young people like you. This thing that we are talking about is not rocket science. People are doing it. Age is not a barrier. Your circumstance is not a barrier. Look at the guy from Jos. Look at the hut that he's using as a workshop. So it's a typical village setting. Some of you here are far more better from a better background than him, but those barriers to progress have been broken down because of the willpower to say, I want to do the right thing. I want to be an entrepreneur. Next slide. Let's hear this also. This is another guy that Japa. Let's hear this. We're almost round up very soon.
Career in Washington, D.C. In 2015, Shea gave up everything to return to his parents' land in southwest Nigeria. The 34-year-old engineer traded his suit and tie for jeans and cap to grow cassava, a popular food in Nigeria. Today, he runs a 400-hectare farm with some 30 employees.
Every time I start interacting with people in agriculture, I learn so much that I didn't have to do about. And that's exciting. I think if I had a job in the US and there's some comforts to it, I'm just showing up to work every day and trying to execute tasks.
Rich heirs or investment bankers, an increasing number of highly educated Nigerians are turning to agriculture, bucking the trend of young people leaving the countryside to try their luck in the big cities. For the past 2 years, Peter, a young farmer, has been developing new varieties of sweet potatoes using aeroculture thanks to an ingenious above-ground watering system.
Nobody wants to do the conventional standing in the hot sun and sweating and the labor that comes with that and so forth. You can combine something with data, technology, and automation and so forth. It makes it more attractive.
These young people are convinced that Nigeria's future will depend on massive investments in agriculture, a long-neglected sector where there are millions of dollars to be earned and as many jobs to create. But the challenges are many in a country with a low-skilled workforce and intermittent electricity.
It's not as simple as putting a stick in the ground or a seed in the ground. It's really understanding how to cultivate it in an environment like here. So in the way that we do it, we have to work with a lot of challenges.
In spite of the difficulties, Shay hasn't been discouraged. He hopes to quadruple his production next year, cultivating nearly 2,000 hectares. He plans to produce cassava flour, which can be exported abroad.
I think we have also learned something from there. What is very clear is that so many people left to Canada. More are still living. But as bad as it may look, of people that recognize the power of this country and the power of this continent. And that's what has happened with Shay. He realized that staying in the US is not the answer. He came back and was able to put something fantastic. So I know a number of you, that's the dream. You can't wait to even get out of our school, and the next thing is that you're out. There's no problem with such ambitions, but understand also that the opportunities in Nigeria are so many. If you can just go for it, we have enormous opportunity in this country that you can hardly find elsewhere. And that's what. So in closing these remarks, you know, they say talk is cheap. It's easy to talk about what other people have done, but it's also important to ask yourself, okay,